Welcome to Realty Real Talk. I am Ashley Jantz, realtor with Coldwell Banker, NHS Real Estate, NHS Commercial. I'm a host. My other host.
I'm Deanne Roundy, her other host. And we are with, I feel very privileged to be with the Ashleys today.
Yay.
The two best Ashleys in real estate, actually. The Ashleys are the two best, Ashleys in real estate.
Please refrain from saying actually. I always think people say Ashley.
Yeah. But Ashley Jantz, we're here with Ashley Jantz. She's actually one of our top agents in our Omaha office. And we're really excited to have her here today. And she has so much wisdom in her years of real estate. And she's going to share with us today, I believe, about how to get top dollar for your home.
Yep.
Is that correct?
Yes. We're going to walk through the process of selling your home from beginning to end. So that first meeting all the way to closing, and hopefully if you have a great agent after closing.
So I'm a client. I call you and say, hey, I need to sell my home. What do I do? Where do I start?
What's interesting is most people that call, their first question is, do you have time to help me sell my home? And I always laugh because, of course, any agent is going to want that opportunity to work with, especially if it's family or friends, but everyone enjoys working with sellers to help sell their home. So the first process that I initially do is I start by collecting a little bit of information about their house. I would say there's probably one of two ways. We can start immediately with seeing the house in person. If you're really serious, like I know I have to sell my home, so let's just skip the initial stuff. We'll see the house in person because I like to go through and visually see updates. Sometimes sellers overvalue things that they have done, or they have got projects that maybe they're undervaluing. But I like to go and see everything in person so that when I'm looking at comparable homes, I can take all of that into account before I give a value. The second route would be doing just a general market analysis of their home based on the information that they tell me and what's on the assessor site. So I'll do it compared to recent sales, but it may not take into account significant updates or maybe high dollar updates that they've done, whereas another listing might have a lower end update. And so I can provide an analysis of their value, and they can then determine, is now the right time to sell, or do I want to wait a little bit longer?
In your experience of meeting with the clients and providing the CMA, or, CMA is kind of realtor talk, but it's basically the comparables that are similar houses to the seller. How many times is it surprising to the seller to see what their home value was with versus what they thought it was? Is that a pretty big difference?
Or do they already know because they looked at this estimate?
Right. Right.
I would say it's probably a pretty even split, that people that have owned their home for more than 5 years, especially, have accrued a significant amount of equity, regardless of time. I think the standard is 3 to 8% a year. So you've got that equity that's building up, and I don't think they think about that, especially if they've made any major updates. And so adding that in there, oftentimes that they're like, oh, I had no idea that I could sell my home for that much. Sometimes that's said in a positive way. Other times it's a little like, I can't believe houses cost this much right now. And then other times, I do certainly think that there are sellers that will come with a predetermined notion of what their value should be. And it can be disappointing when you're like, I don't feel like your house is worth as much as Zillow has determined, which Zillow is 100% algorithm based. So they don't take into consideration maintenance, upkeep, the year of your furnace or the age of your roof. So it's really difficult. And I don't know, at least, what is the old saying? The clock's right twice a day. They're not always wrong. Sometimes they're spot on, especially if you've just got a standard, well-maintained home and everyone in your neighborhood seems to kind of do the same, but you haven't done anything crazy. But I would certainly say that more often than not, even though you might have the numbers, there's a tendency for sellers to ask for more than the house is worth. That's probably the biggest hurdle that I come across, is they're like, well, let's just start up here, and then we can negotiate our way down. And unfortunately, in a seller's market, that's just not how it works. So there's just a lot of educating with, depending on the market. If it's a buyer's market, you definitely don't want to do that. But in a seller's market, While you do have the upper hand in a lot of ways, if you list your home too high, it will sit and sit and sit. And then people will wonder what's wrong with it. So I mean, you don't want to create
as
that
agents,
illusion.
we definitely want to get our clients top dollar, right? I don't know any agent who does not want to get their client top dollar. So, but there are definitely some strategies to get a client top dollar. And, I know you've done a fabulous job as an agent doing that for your clients. What are some of the top ways that you have seen that really help add value and get your agent the most money for their home?
I am a big proponent of staging. I have got a small storage unit that's got a living room set, dining room set, and a lot of accessories, pillows, greenery that we can add to a home, especially if it's vacant. I've had the privilege of working with a lot of clients that are relocating, so their house may be vacant by the time that we're selling it because they've already moved. And so bringing in furniture really helps to add warmth to the home and makes the home more presentable. And so I offer that service for free. My husband and my son are often hired to do that. We'll spend a day where we go and get the furniture and we set up the house. And I feel like it makes a significant difference. And I also go through everything with them if they're not staging their house with my furniture, how to stage their house with their own things. We talk through the do's and don'ts and how to prepare their home so that it looks its best and is the most neutral, I guess you could say, for people coming in, that they can really see themselves living in the house. And that can sometimes be another hurdle for some sellers where you're basically asking them to take all of their personality and personal touches out of the home. And that can be really hard, especially if they're very proud of the way they've decorated. So talking through how can we meet in the middle if that's the case, where we're showcasing the home and not your style. Otherwise, you tend to limit the people that are going to be attracted to the home because not everyone has the same style.
Yeah, I've definitely seen, clients try to get the understanding between, interior decorating is very different than staging.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that definitely gets mixed where people think just because it looks really pretty, that's going to stage it and get it to sell. Where, like you said, you really want to stage it to showcase the home and the highlights of what people are going to purchase when they purchase the home, because they're not going to purchase the staging.
Yeah.
So besides staging, what are some of the other strategies that you think get people top dollar?
Well, I know that I am a big proponent of marketing it to not only other real estate agents, but then on social media. I like to go in and take walkthrough videos. I have a gimbal stabilizer that I go through and edit videos of the home so that I can showcase it on social media. And we also, Instagram and Facebook, still images and then video of the home. And then we send out marketing emails to all of the agents in the area when it's listed, when there's open houses, if there's a price change, just so that everyone's constantly aware of the status of the house. And so in the current market, that's pretty much the standard expectation. And a lot of times I've had a couple of houses where I haven't gotten to edit my videos before it's sold. And then I'm like, oh, bummer. I didn't even get to use them. And so that's the other component, is whether or not you allow yourself enough time to really prepare that marketing material ahead of time. There's been a lot of urgency in the market, I feel like. So sometimes we're not getting photos back until the day or two before listing, which doesn't give us a lot of time to create marketing material. So you're working at a pretty fast clip to get all of that put together and out to pace it with the same time that it hits the market. And then to run like Facebook ads or Google ads promoting that listing, especially if it's one that maybe I'm already anticipating it will take a little bit longer to sell because it's a unique layout or it's in a unique location, because not every home is going to sell in 48 hours just because of the price point or square footage or something like that.
So I kind of wanted to ask, what is your favorite part about listing a home? Like what side of it? You have a lot of listings, so is it meeting with the client? Is it negotiating? Like, what's your favorite part about listing a home?
I have to think about that a second. Start up.
Sorry,
while I search my brain.
Threw a curveball. Sorry.
Well, my initial response is the one that I want to put on there, which is that it allows me to have a more flexible schedule with my family. Yeah. That's a good thing, but I'm trying to think of one that actually sounds like a professional.
Well, I think from what I know of you, Ashley, that you're someone who cares deeply about your clients.
Yes.
And I think when you have someone who's, giving you really their highest commodity, right? I mean, this is probably like their biggest investment for most people, and they're handing it to you. I know that you take a very, I guess, kind of, high expectation to serving them and really helping them. And I think from what I can tell with you and your clients, especially in your listings, is that you go above and beyond whatever they need. I know I'm going to speak just one story of Ashley, because we did our first listing together, or Ashley, we
did my
worked
first
together
listing with you, yeah.
And Ashley was over at the house before photos. I think like 2 or 3 hours before the photos were there. She was cleaning, she was organizing, she was helping the client. It was a little bit of an older client who we knew wasn't able to get to all the things that we needed to do to get her top dollar for the house. But Ashley was over there doing whatever it took so that the house would look great for photos. And to me, that just goes to say what kind of agent you are, but also how much care and pride you take in your listings. So I just want to share that.
I would say I definitely do enjoy the process of preparing the home for others to see and enjoy. So whatever things that the seller loves about the home, really accentuating those, whether that is getting the yard ready, because not everybody has the time or the skill or the means to really care for a yard. I know I've hired my son to go out and edge and mow yards for clients or homes that are vacant, and so they're maybe not even in the state to take care of their property. And so I do really like doing whatever I can to put the house's best foot forward, so to speak. And I do show up early or before the day of photos to go and walk through everything, because sometimes even the listing notes that you give them to prepare the property, there are certain things in the home that they don't want to put away permanently. So we'll go early to make sure we can move things just for photos and then put them back maybe for showings, because nobody wants to put their coffee pot in a box for 6 weeks, so we take things in and out for photos too. But I do really enjoy the preparation of getting the home shining so that everyone can come in and see it at its best, whether that's a $200,000 home or a $700,000 home. I think that either one can be really beautiful and attractive. So I do like that part, yeah.
I feel like that sets you apart from, there are definitely some agents who don't have the attention to detail. And I think that definitely sets you apart with them, because people, they see their home every day and they're like, what do you mean? It's great. Take photos. We're ready to go. But, like the coffee pot, not everybody's going to think to like, let's put that away and give as much room as possible on the countertop. And, then you can go back to your daily life for showings. But I think that's really important. So.
Yeah. Something else I think you're really great at is Ashley is a great negotiator. I have taken notes, and she probably doesn't know this, but I've taken notes from Ashley on how she negotiates. I think something that she does really well is when she negotiates, she has her facts. She has always got her ducks in a row on the reason why a price needs to be the way it needs to be, or the inspections. And that's something I've taken of note of Ashley, that she does a really great job with her clients. So I don't know if you can speak on, a little bit of what are some of the things you think of when you are negotiating for your clients to get them, either the top dollar really on the sell side. Yeah.
Well, I know on the sell side, a lot of times it's really understanding the client's needs, particularly when you're talking farther into the contract, maybe for repair negotiations, understanding their needs or wants, whether they are comfortable making repairs after an inspection, or if they're wanting to maybe just do a concession so that the buyer can make repairs. So understanding where they're at, so that when those repair requests come in, I know how to talk and with the other agent. I've worked with a lot of agents who really embody the spirit of cooperation in a contract. Like, both of our goals is to sell the house. And so I try to take all of that kind of spirit with me, where I represent the seller, but coming to the middle and cooperating with, they really need these things. How can we find middle ground for that? And understanding, I think, all of the subsections of the contract. There's a lot of nuance in the contract. And I know I've called you and our broker, Brent Robinson, many times to be like, hey, this is how I'm reading it, but the agent's reading it this way. Help me understand which is it, so that I really have a clear understanding of whether I'm in the right or they're in the right. And also setting up the expectation that just because a seller chooses to sell their house as is doesn't mean that they actually get to sell their house as is. Occasionally that works out fine. You have to price it very accordingly in that way. But I know that even working with buyers, there have been times where we've done a home inspection, we've said up front that we're not going to ask for repairs, and then something came back in the inspection that warranted needing fixed prior to closing, and we've still negotiated repairs even though we agreed that we weren't going to.
Like a sewer line down.
Yeah.
The important thing you need to
So there are some things that if the seller is going to have to disclose it or lower their price in order to relist it, a lot of times making them aware as a seller, even beforehand, like, hey, this is the expectation, but if this shows up, we're going to have to disclose it to move forward or fix it, or lower the price. So working through that with them, I do really try to walk through some basic scenarios beforehand so that they have an idea, like, this is what could happen, this is our goal, so that they're at least clear on what the expectations are for them. And I think that usually helps. I'm working with clients right now whose father has been coming to showings with us, and I love that I took it as a compliment, because we sometimes give dads a hard time when they come, because they make it more difficult. But he, like you had mentioned, noted my attention to detail. And he's just like, I would have never noticed that. And I'm like, that is just personality quirk, I think. That I really do hone in on those little things, even with a seller when we're doing that walkthrough, like noticing if a toilet is loose, that's going to come up in a home inspection. Why don't you go ahead and fix it now? Or if a gutter's missing its downspout, that's going to come up in a home inspection. Why don't you fix it now? So trying to address some things with them before we list so that we have a smaller inspection report than if we hadn't fixed those things after. And I'm not a licensed contractor, so there are some things that I can't speak to, like your furnace or your electrical panel. But I can still make a lot of recommendations, even like get your service or your HVAC service before we list, so that if there's anything that we need to be aware of, we already know about it.
Yeah. And I think kind of what you're saying too, I think it's really interesting. I've talked to a lot of different agents, and there is a difference between listing a house and selling a house.
Yeah.
And, I know there's a lot of agents out there that will do whatever it takes in that listing appointment to list the house because they want the listing, right? But what I'm, hearing you say, which is such a great strategy, which is you approach that listing appointment from the buyer's agent point of view.
Yes.
And say, what would I be looking at if I represented the buyer on this house, and what are the things we're going to see? And I think, to me, taking it from that lens really looks at, well, this is how we're going to sell it, right? This is how we're going to sell it to the buyer's agents that are coming to show the house.
Yeah.
And I think that's another great strategy of how you're getting your clients, top dollar on your listings.
Yes. Well, and even in how we price the home, is part of, I think, that strategy. That one of the things I talk to them about, pricing it maybe lower than they even expected, oftentimes yields higher offers or multiple offers, which then prompt people to negotiate higher. Last year, I had a listing where I told them my suggested price, and no kidding, they came back about $75,000 higher is what they wanted to list at. And that was the first time that I had to say, if that's where you want to start and you're adamant about that, I will not list the house. And it was a really uncomfortable position to just be like, I know that I can't sell it for that much. And I think that it's going to hurt us in the long run to try to start there. I don't think that it will be wise. And even talking them all the way down to the price that I wanted. I mean, that was a $75,000 gap, but we did. They trusted me. Because their end goal was in the middle. Well, it wasn't even in the middle. Their end goal was to be over $300,000. That $75,000 was $50,000 over $300,000. I was like, okay, well, this is what we're going to do, and we still sold it for over their end goal, but we started significantly under. But just having, I think, the confidence, like you said, not to just get the listing. I don't want to just get a listing to have one, but then have it sit on the market for 30 or 60 days. Because that really tells me that I'm not doing my job in terms of educating my client. If I can't properly demonstrate why we need to list it at a certain price, and I just do whatever the client says, and if it's within $10,000, $15,000, I may wiggle and go up. But if it's significant, then I'm like, I just don't think I'm the agent for you. And that's okay. I think we talked about this last year that I'm not going to be the agent for every seller out there, whether that's because they've got a really unique home that maybe needs a really unique perspective, or just personality. I don't have the personality that everybody loves, but most of the time I try to.
I think it's kind of a, I feel like attracting clients that we do mesh with our personalities wise, and you're just not always going to mesh with everyone. Yeah. And it's like, every agent can sell a home maybe, and but it may just not be the personality type that fits you, and that's fine. So move on to the next.
But anyway. I do think everybody needs an honest agent, which is 100% what you are. So
yes.
Well, as we wrap things up, which this went really fast, how can people reach you to learn how to sell their home?
You can call me. I'm everywhere. If you Google Ashley Jantz,
you better show up. You will
find my face.
Oh, well, thank you. Thanks for this.
This has been great. Yeah. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
And that's a wrap.